Hello and welcome to NDTV. I am Aditya Raj Kaul. Over the last many months, there has been violence against the minority communities in Bangladesh. But especially in the last 1 week, there has been an increase in the violence, particularly against the Hindu community. To discuss this and a lot more, joining us is the Canadian Member of Parliament, Shuvaloy Majumdar, who's also, in fact, the parliamentarian from Calgary Heritage, but at the same time vice chair of the International Human Rights Subcommittee and the standing committees of Foreign Affairs and Privacy and Ethics. Thank you very much, Mr. Majumdar, for joining us. Let me begin by asking you, you wrote a note about what has happened. You condemned the violence, but Deepu Chandra, the kind of visuals that came in, what is your first reaction to the kind of lynching that we saw on the streets of Bangladesh?
Absolutely horrific. I mean, in this age where things like this get documented, I understand that Deepu Chandra Das's family found out by social media rather than from law enforcement of his terrible demise. And the celebration and the glee that you saw in how he was taken, how his body was desecrated and then lit on fire is just a different level of horror, a different level of evil. And obviously, it was very moving to see it. It was a shocking thing to watch.
Also, this is not the first incident. Immediately after the former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was ousted, we saw a lot of violence, particularly political violence against Awami League, but also against the minorities, be it Hindus, Christians, Ahmadiyas, and others. What would be your message to the Yunus government? It's an interim government, but they are in charge right now, and they haven't been able to fully control the situation. There is a question mark on the governance structure, really, especially law and order. So, what would you say to Muhammad Yunus, the chief advisor?
Oh, who's in charge, Mr. Yunus? Dr. Yunus, who's in charge? You've had over a year now to bring calm and to find ways to transition from the previous rule to the next one. And you've had, an opportunity to make some big decisions around the future of Bangladesh for all Bangladeshis, including for equal citizenship, equal rights, equal protections. So who's in charge? And if you're not in charge, then please advise who is, so that the world can focus on bringing accountability to the people who are permitting these types of violence to continue. Obviously, August 2024 was a historic moment in Bangladesh, and we have seen that this violence has continued. It has not slowed down. It has continued over the last year, and now even culminated in this murder, a horrific murder. So for me, the question for the Bangladeshi government is who's in charge. Let us find ways to bring calm and order and the rule of law to all Bangladeshis so they can enjoy equal citizenship and stop this persecution of Hindus, of Christians, Ahmadi, and Buddhists, and all of the Bangladeshi minorities that have been suffering so poorly.
Well, Mr. Majumdar, Chief Advisor Muhammad Yunus assured 2 days ago, Sergio Gore, the special envoy from the United States, that elections will happen on time. Do you think that the restoration of democracy is the most critical aspect of Bangladesh right now? The situation is deteriorating, but can elections really happen at a time when Awami League has been banned? It's one of the oldest political parties which had a role to play in the liberation of Bangladesh. That party is not being allowed to contest elections. So, what would be your message on the political rights and the democracy restoration in Bangladesh?
The rule of law is the primary thing that needs to be established for all Bangladeshis. To me, I seen in the context of even this violence over the last couple of days, this equivocation. Nobody in the press is reporting exactly what's happening in Bangladesh. It's not a major issue. People don't talk about it the way they should, reflecting actual realities. The United Nations itself equivocates between the murder of one soul and the alleged allegations against another. They have a hard time saying that Hindus are being persecuted, that minorities are being persecuted. So without having this basis of reality and the rule of law in the country, elections are obviously very difficult. You've been seeing the Awami League and others being pushed around and activists being persecuted. It's a difficult environment to have an election for sure, which is why it's time that Bangladesh rise to the occasion of its constitution, establish the rule of law, establish calm, and then plan for elections in the right way.
Well, I want to take you back to what you wrote on social media, and people really appreciated your statement all across. You referred to generational trauma, and you also said that this started 50 years ago. You yourself being of the Bengali ethnicity, could you reflect on what the generational trauma is referring to history and the kind of law and order situation or the persecution that the Hindus unfortunately have suffered.
Listen, in 1971, excuse me, in 1971, what we saw was tens of millions of people displaced, millions killed, rape being used as a systemic tool of oppression for the reprisals against minorities in Bangladesh for being affiliated to another country. The kind of impact that it had on the Bengali psyche and the Bengali people, whether they be Muslim, Hindu, or other minorities, Christian, has been indelible. And for 50 years, the country has been trying to chart a course toward progress, toward denying the extremists, either military backed or domestically grown, from being in charge and from rising as political force to deny Bangladesh its prosperity and its development, or the forces of regression in Bangladesh who have been long percolating underneath the system, underneath the judiciary, underneath the police, from actually taking power. So when you saw the change of government and then the backlash that's been impacting so many Bangladeshi minorities, it's a recreation of what happened a half century ago. And the psychology that it's had for the Bengali diaspora around the world, the Bangla diaspora around the world, is powerful. They're in Canada and around the world. You have anxious families wondering what the next news might be when they look at their phones on their WhatsApp messages or when they're scanning social media. You see media offices being attacked in Bangladesh. It's such a regression that has happened in the last year, based upon so much progress that Bangladesh had been making, objectively so, just prior to it.
Well, you're right, Mr. Majumdar, that it's not just the minorities, the Hindus, Christians, Buddhists, and Ahmadiyas, but it's also the media that came under attack. Two prominent newspapers and one editor coming under attack, the buildings being gutted completely, not for the first time. It has happened in the past as well. We've seen bloggers being attacked. We've seen all the liberal voices being attacked as well. But do you fear, Mr. Majumdar, that there is, support being given to the Jamaat-e-Islami elements? The Islamists who were isolated completely seem to be in control of the situation. In fact, on Victory Day, on the 16th of this month, we saw Jamaat-e-Islami on the streets of Bangladesh in lakhs and lakhs. So is the situation out of control to such level that the Islamists may actually come under control and all the secular fabric of Bangladesh will be completely destroyed?
This is the test of Bangladesh today, what you just described, Aditya. This is exactly the test. Because in the last decades, what we have seen is this fundamentalism being groomed across the country. It didn't go away. It wasn't replaced with modernity and with education. It was controlled and contained. And now it is not. And the country at large is paying the price for the failure to have actually gone root and branch after the ideological extremism that results in violence and the oppression of others. That has been the failure of Bangladeshi leadership, and it's the opportunity as well for Bangladesh to try and chart a course forward that actually deals with that issue. All across the world, we've been studying this in the Canadian Parliament. All across this world, religious fundamentalism has been waging war on Western culture in the West. They've been waging war on minority organizations and communities across North Africa. They've been waging war across the subcontinent on minorities. There's a common thread to this deeply rooted ideological and violent cause that has to be addressed. And as long as it is permitted to sustain itself by media and the United Nations and foreign governments who turn a blind eye to the source of this kind of rage farming, the mobs on the streets that destroy the rule of law, as long as that's given permission and license to continue, then every day, every Bengali, whether they are Muslim, Hindu, Christian, or whatever confession they might be, will be imperiled. And so it is a moment in which the world and indeed Bangladeshi authorities must respond to these fundamentalists with strength, to not license their propaganda, and to stand for the citizenship and the human dignity of every Bengali.
Right. I want to divert the attention a little since I have you here to also ask you about the India-Canada ties currently. We've seen some progress being made from both sides. The Justin Trudeau government obviously is not there. It's Mark Carney government. Are you hopeful that the positive meetings that have happened over the last few months could perhaps put India and Canada back on the path to normalcy and there would be progress in the ties?
I am. I think that the meaningful steps that have been taken from the disastrous record of Justin Trudeau when it came to dealing with this important friendship, this important relationship, even though the relationship has had its problems. I'm hopeful that there are more adult perspectives in terms of how we move forward and deal with those areas that we have disputes in the right way. There's too much on the line for both democracies to let certain bad actors get in the way of that. And it's important that that Canada and India succeed for the benefit of Canadians and of Indians. So I'm hopeful that this is the beginning. But I'm always of the view that after the rupture of the relationship that was created after the allegations, it's really important that confidence be rebuilt and be rebuilt properly and slowly. I'd rather take care in doing it correctly rather than rush into it and make an even bigger mess of a relationship that has nothing but potential.
And lastly, the issue of the Trump tariffs has been creating waves all across the globe. India has suffered the 50% tariffs as well. Do you think this could be an opportunity between India and Canada also to build on the trade momentum, to build on commerce and industry and investments between these countries?
A goodwill would be for India to reduce tariffs on Canadian agricultural opportunities. I think that's something that would be good for the Indian food security chain as well as for Canadian producers. I also think that there's a lot of ambition that Canada should be bringing to its Pacific relationships in so many ways in the last decade. You have a real predilection in Ottawa to focus on their Atlantic relationships, whether it's Britain, France, Germany, and so on. I think much of the Canadian future is in the Pacific. It is to get our energy to market, to get our resources to market, to get our extractive ingenuity to market. India has got to be a big partner of that partnership, as well as many other countries across the Indo-Pacific region. And so, domestically, Canada needs to make bigger decision and bring bigger ambition to unlocking those resources. Presently, our government in Ottawa has not brought the kind of intensity that they should be in getting our country more connected to the Indo-Pacific region. And from the opposition, we'll provide as much pressure as we can to hurry that along as much as possible.
Well, we do hope that the India-Canada ties improve and there is, diplomatic cooperation from trade to people contact to education. And of course, the situation improves in Bangladesh. Shuvaloy Majumdar, thank you very much for joining here on NDTV.
Very nice to see you again. Thank you for this.